We know what we hope to see over time is that we hope to see our students' results improving. And it's not because we're, certainly as a well-being team, it's not that we think that the academic results are the most important thing, but it's because we know that it will encourage our students to see that actually taking time to sleep, taking time to socialize with friends, taking time to exercise is actually positively impacting their education.
Hello everyone, welcome to Cambridge from the Inside. We're here with a new guest today. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, hi everyone. My name's Lisa and I'm Head of Wellbeing here at Trinity Hall.
Nice. So today we're going to be talking about a wellbeing project that we're running in Trinity Hall. And I think we're also going to talk about what does wellbeing mean in a college setting and university setting. So before we get into the project that we're running in Trinity Hall, could you tell us a bit more about your role, Lisa?
Yeah, absolutely. So my role and wellbeing roles in general at Cambridge came about as a result of the strategic review of mental health, which kind of looked at everything that we were doing as a collegiate university and trying to work out, is what we were doing effective? Is it having impact? How much are we spending on mental health? What does this look like? So, spoke to senior tutors, nurses, the counseling service, all of the student support services. And what they identified was that colleges were very well placed to sort of kind of assess and triage students. So to figure out with students, what kinds of issues is it that they're experiencing? What support would be most helpful? And then make sure that that student is either getting support from the wellbeing service within their college, or if the support that that student requires is beyond what the college can provide, then signposting them into either the university student support services or other services. So assess and triage was a really key part. But the other thing that the strategic review of mental health identified is that colleges are particularly well placed when it comes to prevention. So we're really well placed when it comes to creating that sense of community, that sense of belonging, that sense of being able to connect with others. So in other words, creating a community in which our students can flourish personally, but also academically.
Nice.
So these wellbeing roles are exist to sort of drive forward that community work, but also to work one-to-one with students to try to work out with those students what they need, and then to provide them with that support if we're the right people to do it, and if not, make sure they get to the right support service.
Nice. And I believe that there is just for the viewers who don't understand, there are wellbeing roles that are in each college as well as the university, and I believe you've had experience in both areas. Could you share a bit more about where you were before and what you're doing now?
Absolutely, yes. So before coming to Trinity Hall, I ran the student advice service for the Cambridge SU, which is the Students' Union. And so in that role, I was supporting students from all 31 colleges. And that was a great experience because it really allowed me to see what different colleges do, how different colleges work, what works well, what works less well. And of course, it gave me experience working with undergraduate students, postgraduate students on a whole range of different issues. And you're right, that is an example of a service that's there for all Cambridge students from all colleges. But it also meant that we built up really, really strong links with the university student support services, such as the University Counseling Service, the Accessibility Disability Resource Center, the Mental Health Advice Service, the Harassment and Violence Support Service, and of course, the more recent postgraduate wellbeing service. It was a great 12 years working there. And then I've been here at Trinity Hall for about 2.5 years now.
Nice. And despite there being so much support from the university that's offered to all students, we have quite a big wellbeing team in the college, Trinity Hall itself. Could you explain a bit more about what different roles and members of the staff we have in Trinity Hall for wellbeing?
Yeah, we're very, very lucky at Trinity Hall. We have a great team. So there are three of us.
Mm,
So I'm the head of wellbeing, but I'm also a wellbeing advisor. Then we have Carol, who's our wellbeing advisor, and we have Joe, who's our nurse.
mm,
So we are a multidisciplinary team. We all have sort of different areas of expertise, but together we are here to support our students at Trinity Hall. When I first came to Trinity Hall, the college itself had done its own strategic review of
mm,
mental health. So it was really helpful that when I arrived, recommendations had already been made about how we could improve support here
mm,
at Trinity Hall. And one of those recommendations was actually we should be utilizing the university student support services
mm,
more. We are paying money towards these services, but our students aren't actually using them very much. And so that's some of the work that we've done is raise awareness about those services. And in fact, I'm very, very happy to say that we have a good number of our students who are accessing those student support
mm,
services. So the stepped care model, which kind of is kind of like a pyramid, and it
mm.
indicates, where students start off on their journey of support and then work their way into the services that are perhaps have expertise around mental health, or it might be disability. Yeah, so yeah.
Nice. I think that's really cool. I think it's really interesting to hear about how much like how much wellbeing services there are in the university and college level. Because I think from an outsider perspective, people associate Cambridge with a lot of hard work, but don't necessarily know how much how many variety of services there are when it comes to wellbeing. And before we go into the project, I think Cambridge have something quite specific where we have directors of studies as well as tutors, um, and they fall under, or the tutors fall under the tutorial. And can you explain what the difference is between a tutor and a DOS, a director of study?
Yeah, absolutely. And perhaps I'll start off
Mm,
with explaining a little bit more about the student experience. So, if we talk
mm,
about our undergraduate students, so just like at other universities, our undergraduate students will attend lectures, and those lectures will be on the university academic site. So, that might be the Sidgwick site, it might be the
mm,
Downing site, it might be the West Cambridge site. So, these are our Trinity Hall students coming together with students from all of the other 31 colleges in a lecture of 30, 40, 50, 100 students, maybe. And of course, what's unique about a collegiate university is that the students then come back to their college
mm.
where they have that supervision,
Yeah,
that small group teaching, where
yeah.
you obviously have, one academic working with two, three, four, maybe five students. So every undergraduate student has a director of studies, and that is the person who's responsible for their academic
Mm,
welfare. And if the student is a history student, for example, then their director of studies will also be from
mm,
history. And that person will be meeting with the student at least twice per term, at the beginning and the end of term, to make sure that they're progressing well in their studies.
mm.
And so that's the director of studies, which we sometimes call a DOS
Yeah.
for short. And then, of course, we have tutors. So tutors are also academics, but they, as you said, are providing pastoral support to students. So if I'm a student studying history, my
Mm,
tutor will not be from history. They might be from English or maths or physics, but definitely not history, because
mm,
they're responsible for my pastoral support.
mm.
And again, tutors have beginning and end of term meetings with their students. And it's really about kind of finding out how's it going? How are you finding your time at Cambridge? Have you made any friends? Yeah, how are things going in general? So helping students to sort of navigate that relationship.
Nice. And is that a structure that exists in every college in the university?
Yes, so this system exists in all of the 31 colleges. There might be a little bit of difference in terms of how students access their tutor
Mm,
and the number of meetings that they have per
yeah.
term, and the same with their director of studies. But yes, definitely that system exists
Mm,
at all of the colleges.
nice. So moving on to the wellbeing project that we're running here in Trinity Hall. I believe it's called the Improve Wellbeing to enhance learning and academic performance project. Can you explain to us what this project is?
Yes, I can. Yeah, we're very enthusiastic about this project. I know that you've already interviewed Gareth Hughes. So Gareth Hughes is the author of this book,
Yep.
Be Well, Learn Well, Improve Your Academic Performance, Your Wellbeing and Academic Performance. So this book really inspired this project.
Yeah.
And the reason why we love this book and we love this project is because it is all about the bidirectional link between well-being and learning. So we think that Cambridge students, who we know they're really hardworking, their studies are really important to them, we think that if they understand the link between well-being and learning, how looking after your well-being will positively impact your learning, that actually that might engage them more in well-being activities and gain a bit more enthusiasm for looking after themselves.
Nice. I'm just quite curious because I also imagine from both your roles now and before with the SU, you must have talked to a lot of students. What were like the motivations for starting this kind of project?
So I guess there's always a sense at Cambridge that students feel they have to sacrifice their well-being in order to do well academically. There's a sense of you have to work really hard. I think some of the insights from our project so far is that there has to be a certain amount of suffering involved in being able to do well academically. So I think for us, the motivation was that we wanted to see our students have healthier lifestyles, but we also knew that for students to do that, we need to provide them with the evidence that actually this is going to benefit you academically. You know, our students care about their studies. They want to do well in their studies. So we know that, we recognize that. So we want to make sure that we're all speaking the same language. We don't want to be a well-being team that says to a student, oh, you're really stressed, just take a break from your studies. Because we're at Cambridge and you do have to work hard and you do have to put in, a lot of time. But we want to find that balance to be able to say, actually, you know what? Taking a break, going for a walk, that's going to be beneficial to you personally, but also it's going to give your brain a bit of a break so that when you return to your studies, you'll probably be more productive and you might even boost your creativity and your problem solving as well.
Nice. Yeah, no, I for the podcast that we did with Gareth, I made sure I read the book beforehand, and I really thought the book was phenomenal. And I think at the very minimum, the book does help students be very well informed before they start studying. And I think you could read books like that, and even if you disagree with everything, the benefit you do have is you do know all of that information, and I've never met anyone who disagrees with the whole book as a whole. I think everyone has different different ways that they approach learning, so they'll prefer some bits over to others. But I remember, because I read it obviously after I finished university, and the amount of times I read something and thought, this would have been really helpful to have known as I was studying or before. There was just like, I don't know, just almost every chapter I kind of had that feeling. Have you read the book? I was wondering what have you thought about it?
Yes, gosh, I absolutely have read the book. Yeah, it's just such a great resource. And I think what I love about Gareth's work is that he provides the evidence to back everything up. And of course, that was really important, not only to engage our students, but also to engage our academics and our entire community. People want to know that what they're learning about or hearing about is actually, there's some evidence behind it. So yeah, this book, it has such a helpful tone as well. I think it sort of definitely takes into account that every person's different and not everything's going to work for everyone, but there is something that will work for you. And of course, it helps us think about what we can do to improve our well-being, and then, as it says on the book, and therefore also improve our academic performance.
Nice. So coming back to the project, I know I think we're in the beginning stage of the project. I was wondering, what things have we done so far?
So I guess the first thing that we did was launch the project. So I suppose the launch of the project was really about getting our community of students and fellows and staff enthusiastic about this link between well-being and learning. So in order to do that, we had Gareth Hughes come to Trinity Hall. On his first day with us, he did 5 talks for students, staff, and fellows. Where he provided us with this information and this evidence, but he also interacted with the audience and got their ideas and their views. So that was a great way to sort of engage the community and inspire the community on this bi-directional link between well-being and learning. So following that, we then, of course, there was the podcast that you did with Gareth, which was brilliant, and that we're able to regularly refer back to and highlight different bits of the podcast that we think will be relevant to students at those times. And then, of course, we had focus group discussions, which I should say we are continuing with our focus group discussions. So we want to speak to even more students and even more fellows and staff. And those focus group discussions were really interesting. And some of the insights that we've gained from those have been so helpful. And of course, they've enabled us to take forward some initiatives already. So this is very much a work in progress. We understand that to innovate, you have to try things out. Some might work, some might not work. But the idea is to, at least have a go. So we've had the opportunity already to take forward a few initiatives and more to come.
Yeah, and just on those initiatives, what are those initiatives that we've done so far? Because I remember I had a look through the report, and some of them seemed really exciting, and I was kind of envious that I wasn't one of the students to be able to take part, because they did look like a lot of fun.
Well, I suppose our most popular initiative to date is our Write Together sessions. So all of this does basically every Monday afternoon between 2 and 5, we bring students together in a shared space. We know that it can be really motivating to study alongside someone else. We also know that having a break during that period is really important. And, for that break, we have different options. We have some little activities, little toys, like Rubik's Cubes, that kind of thing that students can use, or, they can use that time to connect with each other. So I guess it's just a simple thing, but just having that space every week for that commitment that students are required to make. We have had students say to us, we really like accountability.
Nice.
We like to need to be somewhere at a certain time. So we have about maybe between 40 and 50 students that attend that every week, which is great. And we're really, really delighted with that. I guess one that we've launched very recently is our goal setting breakfast. So Monday morning, 8:15 till 9.
Nice.
The idea being, before lectures start, if we're thinking about our undergraduate students, and for our postgraduate students, before office hours start or before lab hours start. And the idea is to just, again, come together in a shared space, plan your week, plan your term, plan your day, work out what your priorities are. And so far, we're getting good engagement with that initiative, and we think that there's a potential for that to grow quite a bit. And then, gosh, there's so many other things that we're thinking about. One of the insights that we got from our focus group discussions with students is that they would like to have more opportunities to learn from each other. So we're thinking about how can we create more of those opportunities. Of course, we've discussed with you, short podcasts for students by students, whether it's, how to manage an 8-week term, how to manage the vacation periods, how to make friends, how to ask for feedback, how to implement feedback. So these are all themes that we're thinking about, and that hopefully we can take forward with you in those podcasts with students. But there are also other things. I know that the senior tutor is very keen on encouraging the directors of studies on bringing students together by subject so that they can learn from each other. Some of our directors of studies are doing this already. And so ways in which we can make this as easy as possible for directors of studies to organize would be, for example, our catering and events team have come up with a menu for directors of studies. So, do you want to go with the pizza option where you get your students together around pizza? And these are going to be informal discussions, but it's where a first-year student can ask a second-year student, how was your first supervision? Or what do your essays look like? And what would you suggest in terms of how I plan my time? So really trying to enable more of those connections.
Nice.
And there are a few other ideas that we have around how we can do that.
Nice. I think that sounds really cool, especially meeting your DOS, your academic in a more informal setting, and meeting up with students who are doing your subject but the year above you, because then you could ask them, like, how did you overcome these things when you're in my year? And I think those conversations sound really good. And these initiatives, I think, even though they're small, they do. I think they do have a huge impact into well-being and learning. The next thing that we have is there is this idea of guaranteed contact points for students. Could you explain a bit more about what that means, guaranteed contact points?
Yes. So this is something that was particularly highlighted in the Education for Mental Health Toolkit. And actually, that's another project that Gareth Hughes led on, which is trying to make the most of those guaranteed points of contact between students and the university. So generally, that will be lectures, for example. And the idea is to embed well-being and, I guess, good pedagogy, good teaching practices within those guaranteed points of contact. As a well-being team, we obviously have workshops, we have initiatives, and a certain number of students will come to those, but it will never be every single student. Whereas these guaranteed points of contact are almost like the mandatory points where students have to engage with the university. Well, we are, of course, a collegiate university, so we have opportunities that this presents to us within our supervision system. So I mentioned earlier, students go to their lectures, but then they come back to college, and then they have their supervisions, that small group teaching. So there is a unique opportunity that we have as colleges to see if we can embed well-being and good teaching practice within those sessions. Some of that might be about psychological safety, so creating a space where students feel that they can debate things, talk about things without the fear of kind of any negative repercussions. But I guess it's also an opportunity to think about, how do you manage your workload? What's the next week going to look like for you? How might you tackle this essay in as an efficient way as possible? And of course, we have other guaranteed points of contact with our beginning and end of term directors of study meetings, tutor meetings. So again, how can we utilize those points to really support our students to develop those skills that will enable them to look after their well-being? And then in addition to that, at Trinity Hall, we're very lucky that we have our induction week as well. So this is when our students come to us for 1 week of induction sessions. Again, there's an opportunity there because students will be coming to all of the sessions, and we already have a great program, but it's thinking about how can we improve that further. The feedback that we've had from students on the induction weeks that we've had so far is that the sessions they like the most are actually the academic sessions. So they absolutely love the essay writing. They love how to make the most of an 8-week term. How to make the most of a supervision. Those are the sessions that are the most popular. So thinking about how can we give them even more of that.
Nice. And I'm right in thinking that I guess every college does it in their own way, but there's no there's no guarantee that other colleges are putting so much emphasis into looking into how we can utilize these guaranteed points of contact. You see what I mean?
Yes, I mean, as you say, there's different practice across the 31 colleges. There are some colleges that might have, a skills development program where they have staff that are specifically employed to run workshops and activities. You have some colleges that are really thinking at the moment about what is the role of a director of studies and how can we utilize that as best we can. It's a really good time for us to be having these conversations because there's the teaching review that's happening. And the teaching review has highlighted areas of improvement. It's coming out with recommendations now. And one of the areas is around sustainable academic practice. So how can we embed those practices in our students? And if we think about perhaps the language that Gareth Hughes would use, it's about how can we enable our students to develop as learners and build their academic competence and their sense of self-efficacy. And self-efficacy, that's believing that you can do it, believing that you will be able to get through that difficult period where you're struggling with a question, you're struggling with a problem, but believing that you'll be able to get through that makes such a huge difference. So yes, how can we use those points of contact to support our students in developing those skills and that confidence?
Nice, wow, that's phenomenal. And I believe that not every college like Trinity Hall does an induction week before the beginning of the year.
Yeah, so some colleges will have it as part of the first week of term. There are a few other colleges like us that might have a dedicated first week. So most colleges have something going on.
Okay.
It might look different in different colleges, but pretty much every college has a sense. We have new students coming in. We want to introduce them to the college, to the university, to Cambridge via more formal activities, but also via social activities. So the JCR and the MCR, which for our listeners are, the little students' unions within the colleges, will often be organizing lots of social activities as well to get students to know each other and hopefully help them get that sense of community.
Nice. Yeah, I think it's really cool that the students come a bit earlier to kind of have these sessions and have this induction rather than just kind of going into it straight away, which I think is really cool. So from the project, I know we're at the it's still early days, but what positive impacts have we seen already?
Yes, as you say, it is definitely still early days. We know what we hope to see over time is that we hope to see our students' results improving. And it's not because we're, certainly as a well-being team, it's not that we think that the academic results are the most important thing, but it's because we know that it will encourage our students to see that actually taking time to sleep, taking time to socialize with friends, taking time to exercise is actually positively impacting their education. So that's one of the things that we hope to see. Still early days, but at Trinity Hall, our senior tutor is very enthusiastic about mock exams. So giving our students the opportunity to practice. And certainly still early days, but the results of the most recent mock exams seem to be an improvement on last year. So that's encouraging. I'm sure it's down to lots of different things, including our amazing supervisors and directors of studies. But hopefully that's telling us we're heading in the right direction. Another thing that we want to see is fewer students needing to take intermission, so needing to take time out of their studies, especially as a result of mental health issues. Again, so far this year, and I would have to say last year as well, those numbers did drop. So again, that's encouraging. Hopefully we're heading in the right direction. And I guess another way in which we can tell whether or not our activities are important to students is whether or not they're coming. So obviously with the Right Together and the goal setting, we're getting good numbers of students coming along to those. We also had the National Student Survey, which highlighted that our students here at Trinity Hall, more than any other college, know about the wellbeing services that exist, know about the student support services that exist, which is great because it kind of sounds as though ultimately our students know they can access support if they need to. But of course, what we're hoping to do is equip them with the skills they need to look after themselves so that they can access the support that we all, generally tend to access in the first instance. It might be our friends, it might be our family. So that's promising. And also the University Welfare Survey, I must say as well. Trinity Hall students have come out of that survey as above average in terms of their levels of happiness and their levels of satisfaction. So again, it's hard to say how much of that is linked to this project, but it certainly feels as though we're heading in the right direction.
Nice. I mean, yeah, I definitely, I'm a big believer in that. If a college was to have a culture of understanding and focused on how well-being, or on the truth that well-being is very interlinked with learning and academic performance, then that would improve people's ability to be a healthy learner and the academic performance. I think it's, I guess from like an outsider's perspective, I think most people would think that a more I don't know, if you had one kind of toxic environment where it was, as you said at the beginning, to sacrifice your health for learning, or you had another environment where people were very informed and educated in the marriage between well-being and learning, well, naturally the latter would foster a better environment. That kind of just makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, it makes me think about a conversation I had with Gareths, of course, the author, which was there's a narrative that our students get from the outside world, from each other, which is, it's hard work. Oh, you're going to Cambridge. Oh, that's going to be hard. You're going to be working hard. Everything's hard. And there was kind of a sense, I think Gareths was saying, with a bit of humor, maybe we want to turn that on its head. Maybe we want to say, actually, we're Cambridge students. We're really smart. And we know that it's not about hard work. It's about working better, working more efficiently, working more effectively, which means that we then do have times for the things that are good for us as well. And one of the insights that we also got from our students was that, after a productive, fruitful day of study, of work, hopefully you feel energized and you have time to do those other things. It shouldn't be the case that at the end of a working day, you're kind of dropping down in exhaustion, collapsing. So they really like the idea of work not being demonized, but actually work can be really good for you if you're enjoying it, if you're doing it in a way that's sustainable. Actually, that can really enrich your life. So let's definitely celebrate work, but let's also celebrate well-being. And I really like the idea behind that.
Nice. I think, me too. I think I really do like the idea of that Cambridge students, to flip that on their heads, that they are smart, and then to realize that it's actually very smart to understand how well-being and academic performance are linked, and not that is smarter than kind of not being in touch with that and then working yourself to a point where it's not productive, and there's no one wiser to kind of learn that, learn how the two are interlinked if they're informed, like through these projects and that book, than Cambridge students. I think you do, at least from my time as an undergrad, you do know people who are trying to work out a balance between the two and work probably more than is productive. But then you also meet people who are very, very savvy and very in touch with how their well-being is connected to learning, and make smart choices. And I think, and we want more students to make smart choices and to be preventative, as you're saying.
Absolutely. We want to support them in making those smart choices. And some of those smart choices are learning how to study more effectively. So it's kind of developing those study skills. And something that we're really looking forward to is an upcoming discussion that's going to happen with our directors of studies, which is, what is the role of a director of studies in relation to developing these skills? And, some directors of studies are already doing great work in this area. And once they've worked that out, then we can think about, okay, so what's the role of the wellbeing team, the tutors, and the rest of the community? How do we support what our directors of studies are doing with our students in this area? and just making sure that we're all speaking the same language.
Mm.
An initiative, for example, that our senior tutor came up with for the winter vacation was a plan that directors of studies could share with students to get them thinking about, right, okay, how am I going to plan my winter vacation? The idea being that with our very short 8-week terms at Cambridge, you do kind of have to spread your work over the academic year. And I think as a college, we're comfortable with that. We're comfortable with the idea that actually you can't get everything done within 8 weeks. You do have to spread it over the year. But how can you do that in a way that is going to enable you to also use that time to, spend time with friends, spend time with family or your carers, whatever, rest, and also learn. So that was great because we were all able to use that tool and all make sure that, directors of studies, well-being team, tutors were all speaking the same language. We don't have one person saying to a student, use your winter vacation to just work every day nonstop. Just that's got to be your main focus. And then someone else saying to a student, rest, don't even look at your books. We want to make sure that we're all sort of joined up and giving the same message to students.
Nice. So with regards to the project, what's next?
So next is more focus groups. So definitely more conversations with students, fellows, and staff. More discussions with directors of studies. Directors of studies, again, through our focus group discussions, have highlighted that they would like to have more opportunities to share ideas and share best practice. As I said, there's some great work happening already. So how can they learn from each other, inspire each other? It's amazing. Our academics are so busy. If I take our tutors, for example, most of our tutors are also directors of studies and are also lecturers. So they have a huge number of activities. They're probably conducting research as well. So we know that their time is really valuable. We know that they don't have a lot of time. So asking to carve out time to share ideas and best practice means that they have to get a lot out of it. It has to be worth their time. So again, this is a conversation that will be had to see, is this something that would be valued? Is this something that we can take forward? And how can we take forward it in a way that is helpful to directors of studies and not just another thing that they have to do?
Nice. Yeah, I think it's really exciting. I really hope that we and this college and then eventually all the other colleges have an environment where everyone is talking about what work they have to do and that they're going to the library, as they're talking about that as much as they are talking about well-being and how they're both linked. I think that's really exciting, a really cool direction that the college is going into.
I was just going to say, perhaps to answer your question a little bit better, it would be that ultimately where we're hoping to get to is a point where we can say that as a college, we value equally well-being and learning. So these things are important to us as a college. We want students to know this from the outset, even for any prospective students. To know, for this to be made clear through our admissions process, through our literature, that this is how we think things work best, and we invite you into this community, and we invite you to value both these areas, well-being and learning, and the link between the two.
Nice, that's really cool. Kind of moving on to different issues and like common issues and adversities that students experience at Cambridge and at university. I think the reason I bring this up is because I think most people either know students from their time at university or hear things from other people, but rarely do we get a chance to talk to someone like yourself who's been in the field for such a long time and have seen such a huge variety of students, and wants to know what are the main issues have you seen students go through at at university and the main issues that come to your doorstep, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, you can imagine that as a well-being team, we get a whole range of issues, and of course, generally it'll be more around kind of settling in,
Mm,
feeling homesick, sometimes maybe a sense of loneliness,
mm,
which of course we expect that for many students that is likely to be the case when they first start with us,
mm,
and it's just a question of sort of trying to work through that period and learning a bit more about how we can go about making friends, how we can go
mm,
about meeting people. Then, of course, there's the academic side, which is quite a change for many of our students, and sort of adapting to how things work here.
mm,
Um, I think there's the probably more we can do around how we talk about supervisions and the work that is required for supervisions,
mm,
that these are formative assessments. So these are opportunities for us to find out what we need to improve, what we're already doing well enough, but it's not sort of, we don't require perfection in these
mm,
pieces of work. It needs to be good enough. So that we could probably do a little bit more around that. So those are the issues that tend to come to us at first. And then, of course, you have life. We
mm,
have students who are in relationships and those
mm,
relationships end. We have students who are experiencing bereavements.
mm,
We have friendship groups that,
mm,
can fall apart. We have students who haven't yet managed to make friends, and
mm,
socially things are perhaps a bit more challenging for them. We have, of course, illness,
mm,
whether that's the freshers' flu or something more serious that impacts on our students. We have some students maybe who have issues with sleep. And then, of course, we have students who have disabilities.
mm,
And at Cambridge, of course, the idea is that for any of our students who have a disability is that we're able to put in adjustments that hopefully make their experience as equal as possible to a non-disabled student. But sometimes those adjustments aren't always right, so they need to be looked at again. Or sometimes we have students who arrive at Cambridge and then through having this sort of very intense 8-week term with a heavy workload, it suddenly becomes apparent that actually I'm kind of struggling a little bit academically. Something doesn't feel right. And so we do have a certain number of our students who get diagnosed with a specific learning
mm.
difficulty, for example, dyslexia, or it might be something more around, for example, ADHD or even autism. So yeah, it's amazing to think that, there's a certain number of our students who have just coped and managed up until this point,
Mm,
and then they arrive at Cambridge and suddenly it sort of highlights, oh, hang on a minute. It turns out I have dyslexia and I never
mm,
realized it. Um, yes, and then of course, if we look more on the mental health side of things, so that generally is the probably the inquiry of which well-being teams get the most
mm.
is low mood,
Yeah.
stress, anxiety, that kind of thing. Certainly within our approach, we're really keen to not pathologize things.
Mm,
So we're really keen for our students to understand that actually stress is part of life,
yeah.
and it's normal to be stressed if you're going into an exam. It's normal to be stressed if you have a deadline that's coming up,
Mm,
and that's okay. But how can we um, develop skills that help us manage that stress in as helpful a way as possible? But then, of course, you do have some students that maybe have been experiencing low mood for a certain number of weeks. So then there could be a possibility of depression there. Some of our students come to us with diagnosed mental health conditions already that they're managing very well on their own. Others might have periods where things
mm,
are difficult again and might interact with us so that we can
mm.
support them through that period. So yeah, a whole
Yeah.
range of different issues.
I guess it shows how much engagement there's been from students with wellbeing for us to know all of that. You see what I mean?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And as we said at the beginning, like there's so not only is there support from the variety of university services, but also with each college through each wellbeing team, as well as the pastoral care from tutors.
Absolutely. We have a whole college approach here at
Mm,
Trinity Hall. So we're really, really keen to not escalate things.
mm,
So, if a student, we're very lucky at Cambridge that we have our porters. And of
mm,
course, our porters are on duty 24 hours a day. So it could be that 3 o'clock in the morning, one of our students might be feeling particularly blue, particularly sad, and they have a chat with a porter. And of course, our porters are trained in mental health first aid, so they're
mm,
very good at providing that listening ear. Um, and then our porters can sort of feed back to the wellbeing team and to the tutor to let us know that this interaction happened and whether they think that actually that conversation was enough,
mm,
or whether they think it would be helpful for us to engage with that student. And generally, it will start with the tutor because, again, we don't want to pathologize things. We
mm,
don't want to escalate things. So generally, a tutor might get in touch and say, "Oh, I understand you had a bit of a wobble last night. Would it be helpful to have a chat?"
mm,
So again, within our kind of informal pastoral system, oftentimes those issues uh, can be addressed and students can feel supported. But what's great is that when our porters and our tutors and indeed our directors of studies, when they find that they're working with the students whose issues are perhaps a little bit more complex, let's not forget our tutors and our directors of studies are academics. They're not
mm,
mental
mm,
health professionals.
mm.
Um, so they're great at providing sort of general advice.
Yeah.
But when it comes to something that's, oh, this is a bit more, you've been
Mm,
feeling down for, 5 weeks now. I wonder if a conversation with the wellbeing team might be helpful.
mm.
So they can signpost
Yeah.
into us. So I think we've got a really great whole college approach. And I say this, but let's not forget about our kitchen
Mm,
staff that are cooking for our students, giving them healthy options,
mm,
giving them a social space that they can come into and connect with each other. Our housekeeping team, which of course are making sure our students have, nice spaces that they can be in, but that are also noticing perhaps if students are not coming out of the rooms or staying in bed all day. So as a community, there's so much that we can do, not to mention the positive impact that just a smile can have
mm.
on someone's day. And our porters in particular are brilliant at making sure that they smile, that they say hello. So yeah, all these little interactions count.
Yeah, I'm happy, really happy that you mentioned the foods, the kitchen staff, because I'm quite big on personally on the relationship between diet and well-being. And I definitely noticed firstly that before that my well-being is massively impacted by how good the food is and how having a very good, healthy, varied meal every day is how that's impacted my well-being as well as and how that differed between before I worked here to now having that food and that's obviously an opportunity that all students have with the dining halls that exist in every college. So the last question that we have here is for kind of any prospective students or students who have an offer to study at Cambridge or even like first years. Was that did you have any advice for upcoming students for when they study at university?
Yes, well, yes, definitely. I would say in the first few weeks, definitely try to make the most of the social opportunities that
Mm,
exist. So that might be eating in hall, participating in any social activities that are
mm,
organized. And of course, I recognize that not everyone is always feeling sociable.
mm,
Some of us might be timid, or some of
mm,
us might, experience social anxiety. So I recognize that these things exist. But I would say get yourself out of your comfort zone um, in order to build up these relationships and have these interactions, because these are the people, or some of these people will become your friends. And
yeah.
it's an important part of having that sense of community and that sense of belonging. And for some students, it might even be sort of in advance thinking about what would my toolkit of
Mm,
building friendships look like. So, how can I take a conversation in dining hall and turn that into, oh, shall we go for a coffee later? You know, how can I get more opportunities to make friends? So yeah, definitely that would be one of my suggestions. The other thing that I would say is to kind of remember that you're here to learn and you're not expected to know everything. I think that's really, really important in terms of how students approach their supervisions, how they approach their essays, for example, how they approach their lectures. We're all going to have periods when we're learning where we feel confused, we don't understand what we're learning. But being able to sort of get through that and get to the other side where we do finally understand is just a natural part of learning. If I use Gareth Hughes' words, he would talk about that sense of self-efficacy, which is believing that we can do something, being really, really helpful in enabling us to live with the discomfort that we feel when we don't understand something, but knowing that actually we will understand eventually. And I guess trying to figure out, what do you do when you don't understand something? So is it the case that you need to do a little bit more research? You need to look for a particular book, a particular resource? Is it something that maybe your supervisor could help you with? Maybe it's something you could discuss with a fellow student. So again, kind of, if you don't understand something, that's completely normal and an absolute part of learning. What can you do to get you to the point where you do understand something? And then the other thing that I would recommend is just thinking about the academic skills that you could develop further whilst you're here at Cambridge. We know that kind of studying at A level and the academic skills we need for that are, can be a little bit different from what we need when we're at Cambridge, which is obviously much more independent, self-directed environment. So that could be things like, making notes that deepen our learning and therefore save us time. It might be learning how you can identify key reading so that you're not reading everything on the reading list, but, how do you identify what you need to read? And then once you've identified that book or that article, being able to work out what within that book or that article do you need to read. So developing that skill that enables us to not be over reading. It might be also around speed reading. How can we read something in a way that means that we're saving time and we're identifying, what it is that we actually do need to read to be able to work on this piece of work. And then other things would be, for example, how do you ask for feedback? And then how do you implement feedback once you've been given feedback? So these are all skills that we can develop. There are loads of resources around the collegiate university on how we can develop these things. But if students are not sure about this or are struggling, they should absolutely speak to their directors of studies about this. They can also speak to their wellbeing team. But certainly academic skills can help us save time so that we have time to do the other things that are good for us, like spending time with friends and exercising, getting outside.
Nice, amazing. Well, thank you, Lisa, for such an interesting podcast, and really exciting to see where this project goes, and hopefully it continues over not just from Trinity Hall but into other colleges as well. And thanks for the viewers for watching, whether it's on YouTube or your podcasting platform. We've got a lot more podcasts lined up, so stay tuned, and we'll see you guys next time.
Thank you so much.
Nice.